Welcome to day number 1. What we're going to do throughout these 5 days is we are going to start on day 1 with entirely seated exercises. As we progress throughout the week, the exercises are going to spend a little more time standing, but still with the support of the chair. So for today, we are going to start down near the bottom, and we're going to do what is called ankle pumps. So even though it is generally going to be a lot of hip exercises in this course, using our ankles and getting them to be really active when we're standing up is a really good way to make sure that we're nice and stable. And one of the things that happens is when we lift our toes off of the ground, it actually activates the muscles in the front of our thigh. Even though they're not directly connected to each other, our nervous system turns on the muscles in our thigh or our quadriceps. So this is a pretty easy set of exercises, but just know that most people fatigue very quickly because we don't normally exercise these muscles very much. So all I want you to do to start is you are going to sit towards the edge of a chair, or you can scoot back if it's a little easier for you. You're going to put one leg straight out in front of you, support yourself with the other leg and hands on your lap, and all you're going to do is point your toes all the way down. You don't have to press hard, just let it fall all the way down, and then pull all the way up. So when you pull your toes up towards your nose, one of the things that will happen a lot of the time is your knee will automatically bend, but if it doesn't, you'll usually feel the muscles in the front of your thigh doing a lot of work as well. So you're just going to keep your heel planted on the ground, and what we're going to do is 12 reps where we pull our toes up towards our nose and then relax for a second. Okay? Let's do 12 starting right now. It doesn't really matter the speed that you go, but what I want you to do is to make sure that you use lots of control. So I don't want you to just use momentum. I want you to ease in and ease out so that you get the most benefit from this. And the range of motion doesn't particularly matter either. Even if you don't have particularly flexible ankles, a lot of it is about getting the activity of the muscle in the front of your shin and the top of your ankle, and a little bit up here as well. It starts to coordinate your feet with your legs. And we're just going to do 2 more reps. Good. So once you've done one side, you can get back into a nice, well-supported position, and you can switch over. So one of the things you see me do a lot of the time when I'm towards the edge of a chair is I will tuck one foot underneath me for support, just to make sure I have a kickstand, and then I'll put the other leg out, or I'll start moving with the other hand. It's usually the easiest way to make sure that we're not wobbling all over the place. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 12 repetitions on the other side. Start that now. That's halfway. And we've just got 2 more reps. Good. So, most of you probably feel a little bit of a burn in the front of your shins. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We were just starting to get the whole front of our legs a little more active. Our next exercise, we are going to need a band. We are going to need our loop that goes around our knees. If you don't have a loop, but you have a longer band, feel free to just make it into a short loop as well. It's generally going to have to be about that big, just purely because if it's too wide, we're not going to be able to put pressure into it with our knees. So get that loop now. So this is the loop that I've got. It's about that size. That's kind of a standard size for these elastic loops. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one leg at a time through it. It's usually easier than trying to do both at the same time. And then we are going to shimmy it up to just below the knees. So once it's just below the knees, what this band is trying to do is push our knees together. So what we're going to do is we're trying to get into a nice upright posture here. We're going to have our feet about shoulder width or hip width apart. You can have them a little wider or narrower, as is more comfortable for you. And then all we're going to do is we're going to press straight out. We're going to hold for a second. Come straight back in again. So what I want you to do is to try to do this symmetrically, meaning I want you to try to do it the same on both sides. What you'll probably find is one of your hips, if you've had a hip replacement, is going to be just a little bit weaker. So you might find that you do that a little bit, or that one shoots forward relative to the other one. So all I want you to try to do is have your left and your right be a mirror image of each other. And we're going to spread. Doesn't matter if your feet roll off the ground a little bit, and come back. We're going to do 10 reps of that, take a short break, and then do 10 more. Okay? Start 10 reps right now. Just go to whatever the natural end range of motion is for you. That's either stopped by your hip or even just your muscle strength. And it's the same thing. We just want control for now. So if you can, try to hold at the extremes out at the end for just a second, just to make sure we're getting those muscles doing a lot of work. We're halfway. Good. Okay, so there's 10. Take a little breath and relax for a second. Then we're going to do the same thing again. So if you find that you're getting maybe a pinching sensation in the front of your hip or something just doesn't feel quite right, that's entirely fine. Just try to reduce the range of motion a little bit. So for most people, they're going to have a little bit of discomfort in the muscles and a little bit of a burn. That's entirely normal. But if you feel like something just doesn't feel right in there, which is hard to tell after a hip replacement, just reduce the range of motion and try to make it a little more intense within that range of motion. That's all. There's no reason we have to go through a huge range. Okay? So let's do the same thing again. Get feet shoulder width apart, get knees shoulder width apart. Try to sit nice and upright if you can, and we're going to do 10 reps, nice and slow and controlled, starting now. We've got 2 more. Good. So again, take a breath, relax for a second. Now we're going to get rid of the band and we're going to switch it out for a block. So same thing as before. It's probably easiest to shimmy this thing all the way down towards your feet. And then hopefully you just take out 1 foot at a time and we can set the band aside for today. For this next exercise, we are going to need our yoga block. So depending on your build and depending on how comfortable you are with what your hips are doing, you can use whatever width of the yoga block that you would like. Meaning you can use it at full width in between your knees like this, you can use it at the second widest like this, or you can use it at the skinniest like that. It's entirely up to you. Most people are probably going to find the middle, the medium width, going to be where they get the best leverage. So the point of this exercise is to try to get the muscles up on your groin that attach from your thigh to the inside of your pelvis, is to try to get those active. These are the tiny little muscles that help to control things around our hip replacements. So what I want you to do is just find a place either right at the knee or just closer to you from the knee and move the yoga block around to a spot where you can squeeze it nice and hard. The whole point of this is to squeeze pretty hard without making it too uncomfortable on your thighs themselves. And the harder we can squeeze, the more muscle activity we'll get up here. So it's going to be the same thing as before. We're going to get to a nice upright position, have feet about shoulder width, maybe a little more narrow depending on who you are. Get that into place, and then we're just going to do about 5 to 10 seconds of squeezing with a break, and we're going to do that 3 times. Okay? And same thing, nice upright position. So 3, 2, 1, and squeeze. I want you to squeeze as hard as you're comfortable squeezing. It's very hard because we're not moving to do any damage with this sort of thing. So you can squeeze pretty hard, and you'll get a lot of activity pretty far up there. You might even feel it a little bit in the front of your hips. That's entirely fine. You just keep squeezing, and whenever you're ready, just relax. So same thing, take a breath. For a lot of people, the more we train their groin muscles, the more it actually trains their abdomen as well. So your core, your abs, and your midsection, a lot of those will get really active as soon as you squeeze. It's really hard to take away your groin muscles from your abdomen. So this is a really good way to start training your core after a hip replacement, just starting with the groin muscles. So we're going to do the exact same thing again. You're going to get that thing into position, get towards the front of your chair, find a comfortable spot where you can really squeeze on this thing. And if you found like you couldn't get much leverage last time, maybe try going even wider. A lot of people will find that the wider one gives them more leverage and they can squeeze a little harder. So let's do the same thing, about 5 to 10 seconds, starting now. For almost everyone, they'll probably notice that their hips feel very different. Even if you had 2 hip replacements, you'd probably find that you have a different awareness of each of your hips. So just know that that's normal. That probably will never change, and that's entirely fine. As long as we have control over them and we can keep squeezing, the sensations we feel, they're just going to be different side to side. All right, now let's take a breath and relax again. This is probably the exercise that we can put in the most effort out of all the exercises we're going to do, purely because most people can just squeeze to their full capacity, and we're not worried about doing anything wrong with our joints because they're not going anywhere. They're stuck in a nice neutral position. So we're going to do the same thing one more time. Get that block into position, get into a nice upright position, and then we're going to squeeze for another 5 to 10 seconds as hard as you can, as long as it's comfortable for you. And go. Good, and relax. So take another breath, relax a little bit, and then we're going to move on. Our next exercise, for a lot of people, is actually going to be potentially the most challenging out of all their exercises. In my experience, both helping people with hip replacements and having had hip surgeries myself, lifting their leg is one of the most difficult things that comes across after. So it depends on the position, and it's not everybody, but a lot of people find that simply taking their leg and lifting like this is going to be one of the hardest things that they do. And it gets even harder when we straighten our leg or if we get into certain positions. So that's something that's really important for you to develop over time, is the ability to actually use your hip flexors and not have to bounce off, but you can actually lift. So that's what we're going to work on today. So what I want you to think about is just the ability to use the muscle. For now, being able to accomplish the exercise is not the only thing we care about. Using the muscle is. So if it turns out that you can't just sit straight up and lift a leg like this, I'd actually prefer if you give your leg some help and then just try to hold it, meaning you can do this. You can lift with your leg, and then you can try to remove your hands and see if you can hold it there. For a lot of people, especially early on, and especially if they weren't overly well trained beforehand, this is what will happen. They'll lift, they'll let go, and it will slowly fall back down. That's entirely fine. That's valid. I still want you to try. And if you find that just lifting is very easy for you, what I want you to do is I want you to lift and straighten a little bit and then come back down. So we all have options. What I'm going to be showing and what I'm going to be doing myself is just sitting straight up, lifting, and back down again. And we're going to do it like a march, meaning that we're going to go left, right, left, right. We're going to do 20 repetitions, which will end up as 10 per leg. Take a break and do that one more time. Okay, so sit towards the middle or front of your chair, wherever you feel like you can find good balance. You're probably going to want your feet relatively narrow, so that, because if they're wide and you lift one, it's very likely you're going to lose balance. So you want them narrow, so when you lift one, it's a little easier. Start narrow, narrower than shoulders or hip width. You can put your hands on top here, or you can put them underneath if you need help. And we're going to do a slow lift, and then we're going to do a slow back down. We're going to do a slow lift on the other side, and a slow back down. So let's keep that going to the point where we get 20 repetitions total. And go. I want you to do whatever speed feels comfortable for you. We're at halfway. I've just got 2 more left per leg. And this is the last one for me. Good. And then relax again. So for a lot of people, what they're going to feel as we go through that is a little discomfort in the front of the hips. And for most people, it will just get a little more intense as we go. that's actually normal. As long as it's not a sharp pain, it's just a little bit of intense burning or a little bit of focused discomfort, that's okay. That's really normal, and that's because your hip flexors are working to pick your leg up off the ground deep down in there. That's exactly what we're going for. That's what we want. So don't be afraid of that as long as it's not causing you pain and you're not using too much momentum. We're going to do the exact same thing one more time before we move on to our last exercise of the day. So same thing, get into a nice upright position, maybe towards the middle or front of your chair. Get your legs a little more narrow than they normally would be, and we're going to do 20 repetitions alternating back and forth starting right now. That's me at halfway. I've just got 2 more per leg. And last one. Good. And we're done with our little marching, our hip marching. So for a lot of people, that's going to be the most uncomfortable thing that we do. And variations of this are going to be done throughout the week because it's one of the most important things that we actually get back after we've had a hip replacement is the ability to use our hip flexors just to lift our leg up off the ground. The very last thing that we're going to do will require you to create a situation where you've got a little less friction on the ground. So it's going to be a heel drag, where all we're doing is straightening our leg, pushing our heel into the ground, and then dragging it back towards us. Almost as if you were trying to reach like a magazine or something over on the floor and you wanted to pull it to yourself with your heel. Or if you were in a wheelie chair and you wanted to pull yourself forward, you would do it by digging your heels into the ground and pulling yourself. So we're going to do the exact same thing. As a result, because we're dragging on the ground, you've just got to find a way to make it so that you're not causing yourself any discomfort with doing that. I'm on a hardwood or linoleum floor. So with me, the easiest thing to do is just put down a towel or something that's going to slide really easy, a face cloth. If you're on something like a carpet or a rug, usually one of the easiest things to do is for you to find like a glossy magazine cover or something of that sort. It doesn't even have to be all that resilient. We're not going to use it a ton. So even if it's just something that slides a few times, that's entirely fine. So what I've got is just this. It's just a piece of cloth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it down just by my feet. I'm going to put my heel right on it, and it's going to go straight out. So for me, it's not just a matter of pulling it back in. It's actually a matter of pressing down into the ground as I pull back in so that I'm using the muscles on the back of my leg. And then you can slide it back out very easily. So we're going to be pushing our heel into the ground, sliding in until it's right underneath us, and then right back out again. So all we're going to do is 5 repetitions per side. For some people, this can be a lot of effort. So for today, we're going to do 5. In the future, we might do a little bit more. So you're going to be leaning forward a little bit so you can put lots of pressure in on this one. So you might want to support yourself on the other leg. So you're going to lean forward, start with your leg out straight on whatever the frictionless interface is that you're using, and try to press down and slowly drag back with me. Good. So there's 1. Let's push it back out again. And let's do 4 more. And this is the same as the squeeze that we did with the block, in that you can just push harder and harder if you want. You can just lean more into that leg and it will make it harder. Or if you want to make it easier, you can try to stay upright. I believe this is our last one. We're going to push down and pull straight back. Now that we've done one side, all we're going to do, push straight over to the other side, do the exact same thing. So we're going to push it way out in front of us, lean forward, press down into the ground, and drag slowly back until it's underneath us. And then out again. Let's do 4 more of those. Good. We've got 2 more. Keep pressing the whole way through. Good. Last one. Press down. Pull straight back until both feet are back underneath you again. And that's it. We are done for day number 1. As we jump into day number 2, we're going to add in 1 standing exercise where we'll have the support of the chair, and we'll put a little more standing exercise in as we go throughout the week. Most of these exercises are going to be just getting a little more progressed and a little more difficult as the week goes, but if at any point you feel like any of the exercises we do in the future are a little too much for you, feel free to use any of the exercises that we had today. Look forward to seeing you on day number 2.